from my teaching experience, this is a really popular type of question. So I definitely recommend you practice these kind of questions often. Now we're going to be dealing with two variables, dimes, number of dimes and number of quarters in this question. So let's start off by identifying those variables. And the first thing we're going to do is write a system of equations using these two variables that could be used to model the situation. Well, we know that there's a total of 90 coins. So if we were to add D, number of dimes, plus the number of quarters, will equal 90. The other equation we can use is based on the value of the money in the bank. So we know that dimes are worth 10 cents. So we are going to take 0.1, that's the value of a dime, multiply by the number of dimes they have, plus 25 cents per quarter. So 0.25 would represent the value of each quarter. And we multiply it by the number of quarters. And by adding those, we get the total value inside the bank, $17.55. So these are two equations that we're going to use. Now for the next part of the question, we actually need to algebraically determine the number of quarters Dylan has in his bank. And we're going to use the method of substitution here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate D here by subtracting Q from both sides. And by doing that, we'd get D is equal to 90 minus Q. So over here in this equation, I'm going to replace D with that. So it's going to be 0.1 multiplied by 90 minus Q plus 0.25 Q equals 17.55. Now this actually worked out quite well because now we've got a variable with only one, an equation with only one variable, Q, and that's actually the variable we're trying to solve, the number of quarters. So first we'll get started by distributing that 0.1 into these brackets, and we'll get 9 minus 0.1Q plus 0.25Q equals 17.55. Okay, so next we can combine our Q terms together. So we've got a negative 0.1Q and a positive 0.25Q. Combined, that would get us 0.15Q. And while we're at it, we may as well subtract this 9 to cancel that out. So that on the right-hand side, we'd be left with 8.55. Now all we need to do is divide by 0.15 to get the number of quarters. 8.55 divided by 0.15 is 57. So there are 57 quarters in the bank. Moving on to the last question, we're told that Dylan's mom is going to replace each of his dimes with a quarter. So that means instead of having 90 coins that are both quarters and dimes, all 90 of them would be quarters. Now we also know that each quarter is worth 25 cents, so we simply just need to multiply that by the value of each quarter, 0.25, to find out how much money he's got. And that calculates to $22.50 that Dylan now has. The question is that enough money to buy a game that costs $20.98 if he also has to pay an 8% sales tax? So let's go ahead and calculate what the actual price of the game would be. So we would take $20.98 to add on 8% sales tax. We're going to multiply it by 1.08. And that's because that's the same thing as 108%. And by doing that, we get $22.66. So we can see that because the amount of money Dylan has, $22.50, is less than the cost of the game, which is $22.66, he does not have enough money to buy it. Only 16 cents short, so I'm sure maybe he could barter a deal, but at any rate, we can conclude that he doesn't have enough money, and stating that $22.50 is less than $22.66 would be a valid enough explanation or justification. Anywho, that would be it for this video, and thanks for visiting JD's Preparation.